What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis, holding it down for analysisplayground.com. Also, we're gonna talk about my Boston Celtics willing and dealing again, as they will trade for Josh Richardson, a guy that had a low year. He didn't really play as well as we thought that he would. He was a guy that was supposed to be this two-way player that can switch and guard multiple positions, add ball handling to help Luka out sometimes, and be a decent to solid, respectable 3-point shooter. And honestly and truthfully, him going to Dallas was a disaster. He didn't really play that much in the playoffs. And all along, while he was suffering and really not playing his best basketball and struggling to fit in and mesh with this Dallas team, Curry was balling for the Sixers, giving them 20-point game, 30-point games, splashing clutch shots and threes, having a blast for Philly. But if I would have to do that trade again, I'd rather kept Curry, obviously, as they needed more shooting. They needed a little bit more to get over the Clippers. And the fact that they didn't really get much out of Josh Richardson shows you that they probably was better off keeping Seth Curry, honestly, especially because they needed a little bit more juice to beat that Clipper team. And Seth Curry would have been it because he would have did more than what Josh Richardson did, especially in the playoffs. And we really wasn't able to reach a deal with Evan Fournier. We still haven't been able to resign him just yet. And he did have a good game against the USA, and we know he's a guy that can handle the ball a little bit, can come off screen, hit mid-range, hit some tough threes every blue moon, hit some spot-up threes, hit a floater, get a layup, a solid free throw shooter. But I still rather have Evan than a guy like Josh Richardson, if I had to be honest. And Josh Richardson, his defense slipped a little bit too. I didn't look at him as an elite perimeter defender. I looked at him about a solid to average perimeter defender. So the things you sell on Josh Richardson isn't high right now. So I can see why they basically gave up nothing for him, because when you look at the fact that the Celtics basically just traded Moses Brown for a veteran, and it was mainly because the Boston Celtics used the trade exception to absorb the contract of Richardson, which means that the Mavericks was just trying to get rid of him off their roster and clear some salary cap to go after somebody else possibly, and just take a guy like Moses Brown that's pretty much not going to do much for him anyway. It kind of make you wonder what is his future in the NBA. He really has to use this Boston platform and their decision to bring him in um, as a huge starting point to rebuild and reset what we think about him, because his season with Dallas was just so disastrous that I didn't really look at him as a starter no more. I didn't really look at him as a quality player, and it could have been the fit with Luka. It could just have been that he's never been a consistent offensive player throughout his entire career, or it could be that he's just a rotation player that you can bring in to give you versatility, give you switchability, and just give you ability to go small. And that should be his role, and that's his game. And he may be just be a guy that bounces around the league just to fill that role for other teams and play 10 years because of it. Because Josh Richardson, when he was in Miami, he was on the up. People started looking at him. Oh, they signed him. He's showing this. He's doing that. He improved this. He improved that. And then they just replaced him with Jimmy Butler, and it was like, yeah, that makes sense. If we can get Jimmy Butler over Josh Richardson, we'll take it. And they went to the finals. So that wasn't a bad decision. And then we thought that he was going to be the perfect fit in Philly, and it was just an embarrassment. He didn't really fit. He didn't look good, and he just didn't look like he understood what his role was and what he should be doing on that team. So I thought him going to Dallas when they needed another scorer, they needed another playmaker, and a guy that can add some defense to their perimeter, as they was one of the worst defensive teams in the league that season before this year. And he comes in and lays another egg. So as a Celtics fan, we didn't really give up much for him. We had to use our trade deception on something, considering that we lose it if we don't. And Josh Richardson is a guy that we need more guards. We need more wings that can come in and contribute and do multiple things. And he still does bring all those things to the table. But when it looks at his career, this has just been a slide. Philly was like the low of the lows. And the Maverick situation was really no better. You look at his stats and it looks like he's great. It looks like he's decent, but he really just been up and down or bad. He hasn't really looked great or good in a long time now. And people remember these things. The fans remember it. The media remembers it. The players remember these type of slides, and it affects how you get paid and affects how coaches look at you, how GMs look at you when they're trying to acquire you, when they're trying to sign you, when they're trying to bring you in. And I honestly think like Josh Richardson, as a Celtics fan, is not the most thing that I'm heads over heels for. I'm not really excited to bring him in. Yes, he's better than Brown, but you know, you know, I'd rather us used it on something else than Josh Richardson right now. And he's tough. He still has the size, and he still can be a guy that's trying to take this year a little bit more serious as his contract is almost up, and he wants to get another decent one. Maybe he uses this as a situation where he can come off the bench and really show that he can be a legitimate piece to a playoff team, and maybe he can show some teams that he can still be a starter, which I don't see right now in his career. And I think Philly and Dallas pretty much proved that. And now he might be a bench player at this point in his career. So if you're a Celtics fan, you're not as happy. You hear Josh Richardson, you think about this, you think about that, but that's just not the player that he has been the last 2 years. And if he doesn't really fit or really doesn't find a niche or a role with this Celtics team, his career could just fall completely off a cliff, and he just be a guy that just floats around the league filling roster spots. And I didn't want to see that happen. I was a guy that really thought that he could be a great player in the future when he was in Miami, and his career had took a turn for the worse. So as a Celtics fan, I'm not happy. I'm not dancing. I'm not enthusiastic about this trade. Bringing in another veteran wing isn't the worst situation either, considering that he still can play. He is an NBA player, and he is a guy that tries his hardest, when he's out there. Even if he's not scoring the ball, at least he tries a little bit on defense, even though I don't think he's the defender that we thought that he would be at this point of his career already. But, I'm not going crazy over it. I'm not really liking it. I'm not, really feeling it. And I don't really look at Josh Richardson as a flippable player. The most you probably can get for Josh Richardson is a second round pick, which is basically cap space, and that's basically what the Mavericks just got for him. The only difference is they didn't get a legitimate pick. They just got a rookie, a young player that most likely won't even be a big part of their rotation or what they do. If anything, they might waive him in the future and just try to use that space on a veteran around the buyout time, which Josh Richardson may be a candidate for that in the future of his career, being a guy that a team picks up and just waives him and goes in a different direction, or he gets picked up for a team to be the seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th guy that they can just have depth at that position. You can never really have enough wings. You can't really have enough switchable guys that can actually play. And that looks like what Josh Richardson is going, in his career. But the Celtics, we needed a little bit more juice. He don't really add that offensive punch. He doesn't really add that swagger. We thought that Jabari Parker can be solid, but Jabari Parker just not a great defender. Never has been, even younger when he was younger. And even though he gives us a little bit more scoring, kind of wish we would have went in a different direction than getting Josh Richardson, if I had to be honest. But, you know, we'll see what happens. We made a lot of trades, and it seems like we're going to retool this entire roster. And I think that we got one big move to make, and now we have to see what Brad Stevens is going to do. I don't really think the Al Horford trade really benefited us significantly. I didn't really care for the Fournier trade at the time, but I understand why they did it, trying to replace what Gordon Hayward brought. But he didn't really seems like he's interested in signing. He hasn't prioritized the Celtics, even though we did make room to sign him, even though we did make the trade to get him. If we lose Fournier, we just get even worse than where we was last year. And the fact that our team looks like is a little bit better on paper, we have to see all these guys play. We have to see what the coach decides to do, or what's the identity is going to be, what our style of play is going to be, and what we can actually do with this team. So if you're a Celtics fan, you lost right now. You're in a lost situation where we believe in Andreas Stevens. We see his hunger. We see that he's making moves to improve and change the roster, but we have to see what he does at the end of the day when the free agency period is over. Then that will set our expectations for next season. But right now, we still look like a playoff team. We still look solid, but we don't look like a championship team. And that's what we're trying to see what else Brad Stevens has under his sleeve to get us back to that point. And none of the moves he has made, to me, made us a championship team so far. They make sense for a big plan, but we have to see that plan actually happens, and it hasn't happened just yet. So be patient. You're going to be a little confused too, honestly, because I don't really see us getting significantly better through all these trades that we have made so far, honestly. But I don't see us getting significantly worse unless we just lose Fournier for nothing and don't replace him with nothing but a solid rotation player. So to me, I'm not happy as a Celtics fan. I'm really not. We had a disappointing season this year, getting put out in the first round. Everybody was injured, toe up, and really not happy playing with each other. And this off season has made me even more depressed as a Celtics fan. It went from me being not happy to now I got a mental illness, and I'm depressed as a Celtics fan right now. But give him some time. This is his first couple months, and maybe he makes enough moves, get enough pieces to flip him into something that makes us all smile again. And remember that being a Celtics fan is always great because we always in competition for the playoffs, and we always that one move away from being back to where we lost, which was the 2010 finals when we came up a little bit short. But we'll see. We got Tatum, we got Brown. That's the reason why we still smiling for a little bit. But they need a little bit more push, a little bit more help to make this team a legitimate championship team in the East and in the entire NBA. So let's see what they do the next couple months and in free agency. Other than that, Quinn Wade, basketball analysis signing out. And I'll be back later or tomorrow with more content of free agency and the draft. Hopefully, you guys enjoy the rest of y'all day and enjoy the weekend.